Hey, this is Math Minutes Pro with Dr. Harrison. Today, we're going to talk about how to find the X and Y intercepts. And before we get started, let's build your math vocabulary, okay? So before we get started, let's build your math vocabulary. And in particular, let's talk about and define what is an X-intercept and a Y-intercept. So an X-intercept is a point on the Y-axis, all right, that is along a graph. So here we have a linear function or a line graph, and we see that we have an X value that falls, that's on the line graph and where this line graph hits the x-axis. So an x-intercept is a point on the line where that point intersects with the x-axis, which is right here. So let's go ahead and identify the x and y coordinates for that. All right? Well, if we have a point on the x-axis, right, then we're setting up the x and y coordinates, right? X comma y. Well, we know that the y-intercept is 0 if it's on the x-axis, and the x-intercept is positive 4. Okay? So in this case, we say that our x-intercept, we can write it two ways. You can say the x-intercept is 4, or you can write it as an ordered pair, 4, 0. So starting here from the origin, you move over 4, and then you don't rise x along the y-axis. You stay here at 0, so you have 4, 0. That is our x-intercept, all right? But we also need to find the y-intercept. So, definition. The y-intercept is a point along the graph where that point intersects the y-axis. So here we have a point on the graph that intersects the y-axis. All right, so in that case, let's see if we can find the y-intercept. Well, we know that it's going to be x comma y in terms of the coordinates. So then you start from here. So in that regard, this is referring to this point. This is referring to this point here. So in this case, our y-intercept is going to be, let's write it, y-intercept equals positive 2, or we can write it as an ordered pair, right, where x is 0 and y is positive 2. So there we have it. That is how you find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now what I'd like to do is move into, let's get a little more practice again with another graph. It's always good to practice it maybe twice. So let me erase this here. And let's provide another particular graph that will give us a chance to practice identifying the x-intercept and the y-intercept one more time. All right. All right, so let's see what we come up with. Let's start with the x-intercept, okay? Now remember, the x-intercept is the point along the line or the graph. We have a straight line, a linear graph or a linear function. The x-intercept is the point where that point intersects the x-axis on the graph. And so we see it's right there at -1. So then we can say the x-intercept equals -1. Or we can write it as an ordered pair. If the x-intercept is -1, the y-intercept is 0, because you start from the origin, you travel here, and you don't need to move up, you just move to the left. So the y-intercept, the y-coordinate rather, the y-coordinate is 0. So let's go ahead and find the y-intercept. Now the y-intercept remember, the y-intercept is the point where it's along the graph and it intersects the y-axis. And so that would be right here. Okay? So in that case, the y-intercept is a +4. And we can write the ordered pair. So if the y-intercept is +4, or that y-coordinate is also, we can write it here as +4, the x-coordinate is 0. So there you have it. The x-intercept and the y-intercept. Now I want to go back, because I just want to go back to the graph we just did a moment ago, and just want to clarify that when we found this x-intercept, the y-coordinate was 0 and the x-coordinate is 4. When we found the y-intercept over here, we know that the y-coordinate is 2 and the x-coordinate is 0. Now let's move into some other things that we can do using intercepts. When given, or actually when provided with an equation, this is a linear equation, we can find the x and y intercepts without even having a graph. All right, and I'm going to show you how to do that, where you can find the x and y intercepts, and then we'll plot the x and y intercepts. So we're going to find the x and y intercept first, and then we're going to plot it. All right. Let's go ahead and start. I'm going to create a table that I'm going to use to organize my problem solving. And this is where we're going to find the x-intercept here. I'm going to have our work over here to find the x-intercept, and I'll work over here to find the y-intercept. Now remember, when you're dealing with x-intercept and y-intercept, I just want to clarify something so before we go any further. when you're finding the x-intercept, we have an x value, but the x-coordinate and then the y-coordinate is 0 because it's on the x-axis. And when you're finding the y-intercept, you know that the x value is 0, or the x-coordinate, and then we have a y-coordinate. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead. So when we get started, we're going to say let, we have this equation here. Let me copy that first. 3 times x plus 2 times y equals -6. And in finding the x-intercept, we're going to let y equal 0 in this equation. So then let's rewrite it. 3 times x plus 2 times 0. We substitute 0 for y equals -6. Okay, 2 times 0 is 0, so that crosses out. We get 3 times x equals -6. We need to solve for x. We're going to use the division property of equality. I'm going to write this again. 3 times x equals -6. And divide both sides of the equation by 3. We get x equals -2. That is your x-intercept, right? Or we can write it as -2, 0. All right, so this is our x-intercept right here. And let's plot that point. Start from the origin, we go over -2, and the y-coordinate is 0, so there it is. -2, 0. That is your x-intercept. Now, let's find the y-intercept. So I'm going to copy this equation over here again. 3 times x plus 2 times y equals -6. And we let y equal 0, but here we're going to let what? X equal 0, because we want to find the y-intercept. So we're going to substitute 0 for x. So 3 times 0 plus 2 times y equals -6. All right. 3 times 0 is 0. That crosses out, so we bring down the 2 times y equals -6. Use the division property of equality. I'm going to bring that down again. Divide both sides of the equation by 2. The opposite of multiplying y by 2 is to divide by 2. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side of the equation. We get y equals -3. Or we can write the y-intercept as an ordered pair. So we have -3 for the y-coordinate, and x has to be 0. This is our y-intercept. So let's plot that point. All right, in plotting that point, we start from the origin. X is 0, y is -3. 0, -3. And there we have it. We have plotted the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And if you wanted to go a little further, you can sketch your line. You need at least 2 points to make a line. Sometimes your teacher may ask you to not only plot to find the x-intercept, then they'll say plot it and then draw the line, okay? And this is the equation of the line that goes with this line, all right? This is the equation that goes with that line. So we have successfully found the x and y intercepts, We also plotted the points and we sketched a line. All right. So thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to check out my Patreon page on my video description below. On my Patreon page, you can get access to exclusive math lessons, study tips, live Q&A, and more. See you next time.